Education through Asian and Latina lenses. The American perspective is informed by culture. It is the culture that we are raised and nurtured that produces functioning people that play in the dynamics of society. Education becomes culturally significant. I'll examine the cultural differences and similarities these groups have in education. I will measure the ways in which these groups lose some of their childhood in the pursuit of education through memories and experiences of Asian and Latino women. During the gold rush of 1848 through 1855, Chinese immigration law restricted Chinese Americans from competing for gold. In 1965, the United States issued the Chinese Immigration Act. This welcomed Chinese immigrants into the United States based on their qualifications as skilled laborers. This was a time in history when African Americans were fighting for their civil rights. So to equalize the minority representation, the U.S. government instituted the Chinese Immigration Act to increase the number of Asians in the U.S. The history of Latino immigration has always been to create minorities in the system. The western half of the United States was once part of Mexican territory. The U.S. purchased the territory in the Treaty of Guadalupe in 1848. The land was reassigned to white Americans, and Latinos became the minorities in their homeland. The U.S. had repeatedly looked to Mexico for manual laborers. Through a variety of legal and informal mechanisms, Mexicans were displaced from their land and propelled into the bottom of the working class, were disfranchised and segregated into barrios. One such example was the Bracero program, that the U.S. employed Mexicans for agricultural labor from 1942 to 1964. When the Mexican immigrants established communities and families in the U.S., the government placed restrictions on their immigration and deployed Operation Wetback, a derogatory term that was used to enforce the return of Mexicans to Mexico after they had worked in the fields of the U.S. Asian Americans are pressured from their families to attain high grades and become professionals. The stereotype model minority is used to keep Asian people as minorities, even though their graduation rates are high. The systematic negative treatment of Asian Americans and Latinos in America have led to their oppression at various levels. Asian Americans today are the result of the immigration of highly skilled Asian immigrants. These immigrants usually held higher education and were solicited by the U.S. government to fill the higher paying jobs. Latinos have predominantly been solicited by the government to be disposable laborers. Asian culture pushes their young to produce academic achievement through pressuring their young. The term tiger mom is reference to Asian mothers who are determined to see their children succeed. Academics in the Latino culture are stressed, but the language barrier and legal status make learning difficult and leads children to become discouraged and behind. Education for Latinos is a battlefield of obstacles, starting with the systematic institutionalization of the children. When we measure success as progress from generation to generation, then we can see the achievement that Latinos have gained. Out of 100 Latinos who start high school, only 57 will graduate. 12 will receive their bachelor's degree, and of those 12, only 3 will get a graduate degree. Out of 100 Asians, 100 will graduate high school, and 64 will graduate from college. Over 40% of Chinese immigrant mothers have a bachelor's degree, whereas only 20% of Latino mothers have their high school diplomas. Aside from the educational gap between the two ethnic groups, cultural capital is what creates stereotypic reasoning that Asians are smarter. Asian Americans believe in tutoring, SAT prep, mental math programs, and pressuring their children to achieve higher grades. The cultural capital in Latino children is represented by the strive of the parents to make sure that the children are well fed and loved, because many times the parent does not have enough monetary funds for the student's needs for tutoring or private schools. Our reliance is on the educational system that is based on the same system that has created Latinos to be oppressed. I interviewed 2 Asian parents. One family was Korean and the second family was Chinese. They both said that childhood is a time to get their children prepared for the workforce. They believe that childhood is where the children can establish themselves and build a foundation to compete with the workforce. I interviewed 2 Latino parents, and they informed me that childhood is a time for play, a time to explore, and a time to be free from obligations. Both ethnicities explain the importance of education for their children. In 2007, a study at Stanford University found that some Asian parents can put too much emphasis on job security over personal fulfillment. As a Latina, my first-hand experience is that my family did not know about college, and therefore did not have the pressure to succeed, but I had the burden of ignorance. whereas adult Asian women feel the pressure not to disappoint their family. Being Latina, attaining a college degree, my expectations of achievement were not part of the reality. The reality was that I made it to college, and anything that I would do as a result was an achievement. Overall, the women I interviewed said they enjoyed their childhood. They said even though there was a pressure to perform with good grades, they felt that their childhood was an overall happy experience. They enjoyed all of the extracurricular activities that their parents pushed them to try. Childhood to these Asian American women meant the experiences and memories they gained while they were little. Before the 17th century, children were thought of as mini adults. The idea of childhood changed when John Rousseau created the modern idea of childhood as being a brief period of sanctuary before people encounter the perils and hardships of adulthood. The idea of childhood is dominant in Western societies. Children who are being raised in a hurried, pressured style may limit the protective benefits they would gain from child-driven play. Play is considered to be important to optimal child development, and it has been recognized by the United Nations High Commission for Human Rights as a right for every child. Childhood is therefore a manifestation of Western ideology. It is subjective, based on cultural norms and traditions. Adults from Asian and Latino culture both experience happy childhoods. They related their levels of happiness to their experiences and memories of the culture.